Hey there, legendary souls. Welcome back to Unconventional Counseling. So, I am sitting with and meditating on the Libra Full Moon that we had recently, and I'm thinking a lot about how we, as people, have been socialized to self-sabotage in relationships. And one of the ways that that can show up is in a very Libran way of trying to keep the peace. Of trying to keep the peace, trying to keep the harmony at all costs. It's when people will have a disagreement or some sort of conflict comes up and they'll say, can we start over? Can we reset? Can we move forward? And I grew up watching, media where in relationships that's what they would do. They would say, okay, I'm just sorry. I'm sorry and you're sorry. Can we just reset? Can we just move forward? Can we just move on? Because to sit in the disagreement, the discomfort of the conflict, it seemed like it was too much. And I think about it sometimes generationally, right? Like the people who are acting in those stories that have been created, that I grew up on, that we've been socialized on the past 20 something years, 30 something years, they were raised by people who either did that too, or what we were seeing in media was actually ahead of, somehow progressing what they received. And I just think about that in terms of our culture. What our media represents is often a reflection of, or sometimes it's trying to heal something that we've received previously by giving a different, a different standpoint. And I don't know which it is. I don't know if people just didn't talk about stuff, and so to say, okay, I'm sorry, people didn't apologize for stuff, so to say, I'm sorry, can we reset, was someone's or a whole generation's belief that that could be alignment and that could be keeping the peace. And now I'm curious. Now I feel like keeping the peace is different. And I think that my curiosity about peacekeeping feels so relevant because we as people have not been able to keep peace, like in our larger world, in our global world, in our communities, in our neighborhoods. We have not been able to effectively or consistently have peace, create peace, cultivate peace, share peace. We have not been able to be aligned around peace for long enough to say we had a peaceful period in some sense. And sometimes, especially with American society, it's the only one I know this deeply, and I've thought about this much. But I know sometimes people say that there was a simpler time, especially white folks. Not all white folks, but some white folks will be like, there was a simpler time, in the 70s or they'll just name some prior decade where they felt like they had peace. But whenever people do that, whenever people like relate to some previous decade, especially in some weird idyllic all white neighborhood that they're referring to of some previous time in their life, I think about the cultural context of that time too, and I'm like, oh, okay, so when we had the opioid crisis, that's when you felt the most peace. Oh, so when crime rates were really high and they were cracking down on black and brown people for just existing, that's when you felt the most peace. Like that will be what I say in my head, because I try not to share those thoughts all the time with the strangers, because I've done it and it shuts down a conversation so quick, and that's uncomfortable for us all. So I just try to let people rock these days. I'll just be like, oh, okay, that's what you think. I hear you. It's my way of trying to keep the peace sometimes, just to listen instead of always having to refute or disagree or engage so deeply. But back to the topic. We're just talking today. We're channeling. Self-sabotage in relationships has often been about trying to keep ourselves smaller, but in a paradoxical way, because we've been trying to keep ourselves smaller while also trying to make our role in relationships so important by being the person who's needed, by being the person who has the answers, by being the person who has the advice, by being the person who is great in a crisis, because maybe you were surrounded by people at another time in life that their life was just crisis. Like every day, every week, every weekend, there was something going on that they needed a sounding board. They needed someone who could be grounding for them. They needed someone who could think it through with them, or who could hold the space with them in a non-judgmental fashion. And I'm sure you did a great job. I know I did when I held these roles in people's lives. And when some of the people held these roles in my life too, when I had more chaos to sort through, when I didn't understand my power as much, I didn't understand myself as much. These relationships were so important to show me reflections of myself as best as they could. And this way of keeping the peace doesn't feel sustainable. It is not sustainable any longer. During my Saturn return, it stopped being sustainable in any form or fashion. It stopped being sustainable before I was ready to let it go. But if this is something that you're at the crossroads around right now, I just want to say, I want to be encouraging, but I also want to be truthful. And it is hard when relationships shift. It is hard when you recognize that sharing that you have needs, or sharing that you have feelings, or sharing that your nervous system is not okay with how someone is relating to you, or showing up or not showing up in connection with you, that the attachment that you have with them, or the connection that you have with them, that it needs more care, or more consideration, or more curiosity, or more thoughtfulness, more intention, more space, more time, more slowness. You just need more of something. And it is really vulnerable to share that with someone else. And it can be really devastating when people are not in a place where they can, or they are willing, or they are capable of showing up in the ways that you need. And it can be really lonely. It can be super freaking lonely. And if you're in this space, in this process, it will get better. It will. Even if it doesn't get better with a snap of the finger overnight, in the sense of you feel better about everything and people are just kinder to you, and it feels like peace in that idyllic sort of way that I think on some level, some humans, maybe not all humans, think is possible in their lifetime, and they work to carve out, right, in their own lives and in their own communities, in their own families, in their own relationships, within themselves as best they can, to try to create more of this peace that we're looking for, wanting, believing is possible, and hoping for in this lifetime. But what I'm learning and what I believe and what I want to share with you, Mercury is still in Pisces and we are gonna flow. What I want to share with you is, it has its own value and it has its own merit for you to not sacrifice yourself in relationship with another. I may not be able to articulate all of the ways that it has value and all of the ways that it has merit, because there is loneliness involved, and there is confusion involved, and there is this desire to just be like, okay, well, let's just reset and let's just start over and let's just not talk about it all. But there are these other people and there are these other relationships, and some of them might already be in your life and some of them are on their way. And in those relationships, you don't gotta struggle like this. So if you keep practicing the struggle and believing that the struggle in this way of sacrificing your own needs, of sacrificing your own perspective, of minimizing the importance of what you have to say and what you want to share and what you need and how you feel, if you keep practicing that, you're not going to know what to do when these new connections come in and there are other people who also want to cultivate peace with you. People who want to know when you feel sad. People who want to know when you feel nervous. People who want to know that there are things that they're doing or not doing that impact you, and they actually have the energy, the care, the consideration to hear you out and to try to shift things to the best of their ability so that they can show up for you. We want to know what to do. We want to be prepared. So right now you're practicing for the relationships that you want more of in your life. People who are aligned in this peacekeeper value in a way that doesn't sacrifice themselves either and doesn't have to sacrifice you. So that's what I got for you right now. You're in process, and it is okay to be in process, and it's okay for process to be uncomfortable and scary and to not know. But I'm trying to give you a little sense of what's next. This is what's next. There are people coming. They're gonna have their own ways and quirks and things that are hard for you to navigate. And you are gonna still feel the things that you feel because you're you, and your nervous system is what it is at this time in your life and in your journey. But they're gonna care about that journey that you're on. And it's gonna help you care that much more about the journey that you're on. So let's be in process. We're on our way. All right, take really good care of yourself, and I'll catch you in the future. Bye.